Welcome to Opera Out of the Box, unpacking opera piece by piece. I'm your host, Brad Cresswell, and my guests today are James Norman, Kevin Bilsma, and Joshua Borths. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
Totally glad that you're here joining us today, Joshua. By phone, I should mention. Jim and Kevin are here in the studio. Let's begin with, first identify yourselves and what you do for people who don't necessarily know all the workings that go on behind the scenes at the opera. You guys are co-artistic directors, Jim
Correct.
and Kevin, right?
That is correct, and I'm also in charge of the Resident Artist Program, which feeds into the Opera on Wheels program.
Okay. Well, the reason that you mentioned that is today's topic is education, and we're going to take a deep dive into all the different offerings that Toledo Opera has, kind of picking up the slack there for music education. Now, the three of us, or the four of us, actually, Joshua, I maybe you can explain who you are, just so we know.
Yeah. So I am the writer of many of the shows that the Opera on Wheels program produces. So I take existing music from the kind of public domain and from the operatic canon and adapt it for educational audiences. And I'm actually based in Richmond, Virginia, the resident scholar of Virginia Opera, and love collaborating year after year with Toledo.
Which is why you're on the phone right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Multiple hats.
Well, let's begin with you, Joshua. Tell us the story of how the state of education, music education, and performing arts in particular, how it was back in the day when you were a youngster. What was your experience?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to have a number of really great music educators in my early educational experiences. Went to public schools actually in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a native Ohioan. And every year, it wasn't opera, but different theater groups would always kind of come in, and we would go into the cafetorium, the cafeteria, auditorium, hybrid. And I was always just so taken by whatever it was that was offered, whether it was a puppet show, whether it was theater, whether it was dance. Didn't matter to me. Seeing this live experience in the middle of your normal kind of suburban elementary school was one of my highlights of the year. This then translated into my parents and grandfather taking me to different cultural events, but they were really responding to what I had experienced in school based on getting this information, getting this music, getting these experiences at Freedom Elementary in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Excellent. Who wants to go next, Jim or
Sure,
Kevin?
I'll go.
Jim, you want to tell us about your experience?
Well, it was a long time ago, so I'm digging deep on the memory here, but I remember...
Just do what I do and make it all up.
There you go.
You'll be fine.
Ottawa Hills had a really strong choral and theater background, and in elementary school, I remember in the basement of the elementary school, the windows were high up, so to help with any, emergency escape, they had the really tall pianos. I can't remember what they're called, but they were the really high pianos. And in 5th grade, we took one of those apart and put it back together.
Wow.
And that really still sticks with me, of all those little parts around, and we learned how the hammers worked and all of that.
Yeah,
and
you put it back together correctly.
we did. It actually worked after we
did.
got done.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when I got later on, I don't remember any troops coming into the school, but I remember being in the shows at the school, and that was really rewarding.
Excellent. Kevin, you want to
Sure.
tell us your experience?
Yeah, mine wasn't quite as long ago as Jim's, but
You weren't
almost.
putting pianos together and taking them
Not
apart.
at all. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and went to a parochial school, and so every day began with singing. We never had groups coming into the school, but we sang every single day. That's
Really?
how the day began. And I'm sure that had its impact on me, which is why I'm a vocal coach, I guess.
Yeah.
But probably the aha moment for me was in 5th grade. All of the 5th graders throughout Grand Rapids were invited to a Grand Rapids Symphony concert. And just knocked my socks off. I still remember at least 2 of the pieces that were on the program. They did the prelude to Act 3 of Lohengrin, and I was just like, wow. This
Yeah.
is really something. And then they did the typewriter song of
Leroy Anderson.
And that was too, wow.
I can see how those go together.
Yeah.
Right?
But really just kind of opened up my eyes and ears and to go, this is really cool. I wonder if people can do this for the rest of their lives. And so it's the beginning of an educational road.
Well, my experience was probably in high school, and I had a humanities teacher who was a big fan of Caruso, and she would play recordings of Caruso.
Oh, cool.
And I was, hooked on that. I'd sung in a boys' choir, but I started going to the library and getting all these recordings that I could find of Caruso and of other tenors. I was listening to tenors mostly, and I listened to people like Franco Corelli and other famous singers, and I was thinking, well, why aren't they as famous? Because they're pretty good too. I didn't know, but many years fast forward to around 2000, 2001, and I sang Canio in I Pagliacci at Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. And the same stage that they had, the same wood that Caruso had been on, was still there. So I felt like I
felt
came
the
full circle.
vibrations.
Yeah, I felt the spirit of Caruso hovering over me.
It's fantastic.
Not to say that my voice was anything like Caruso, but it was a wonderful experience, and that started my interest, as it were. And we had a pretty good music program back in the day. I think nowadays a lot of the slack has been taken up by, here in Toledo, by Toledo Opera and other performing arts organizations. But we're here to talk about opera today. Let's talk about the educational programs at Toledo Opera before we get into the quizzes that I have here. Yeah, right. So I see you sweating bullets.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start by talking about Opera on Wheels, because that is something that you are intimately involved in, Joshua, and you, Jim, and Kevin as well. Who wants to take the lead and tell us what the efforts are of Toledo Opera in regards to Opera on Wheels? Because it's a really impressive program.
Well, this was begun back in the 60s by the Opera Guild as Opera in a Suitcase. I was not in elementary school back then. But it then evolved into Opera on Wheels in the 70s. So it's been going almost 50 years. And it is a K through 6 program where we take a full-length opera that has been cut down and rewritten in English into the vernacular of the students by the brilliant Joshua Borths. And we take that out to schools around the area from south in Findlay to north into Ann Arbor, close to Sandusky, and all around the region. In 2 parts. We do a fall tour, a month in the fall and a month in the spring. And it's just delightful. We see over 22,000 students at 60 different schools, and it's very rewarding. The resident artists are the troupe that goes out to perform these, and they come back just filled with energy from the kids.
That's wonderful. And the fact that people get to see live performances, when they're young at a very impressionable age, that really says a lot. Joshua, what is Opera on Wheels doing right now? What piece of yours are they doing?
Yeah, so right now Opera on Wheels is doing Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, which is the second time, actually, that it was so successful the first time that it's back for a second tour. And it is an adaptation of Mozart's Don Giovanni. Uh-huh. And whenever I, kind of take the, whatever it is that Toledo wants to do and start to adapt it, we always want to make sure that the vocabulary is at the level of the K through 6 demographic. We want to make sure that there are jokes, that it's entertaining, that it moves.
I think of Don Giovanni. When I think of Don Giovanni, it doesn't exactly scream fun and jokes.
That leads me to the next part of this, which is that I also, even though we have to make all of these wonderful adjustments, for our audiences, we also want to maintain the kernel of what makes opera special and what makes this music special in particular. So this particular piece is about all the fairy tale characters who the Big Bad Wolf has bullied come together to give the wolf his comeuppance, which is essentially the plot of Don Giovanni, albeit with fairy tale characters instead of, Don Elvira and Don Anna and all of those characters from the immortal Mozart. And so, on some level, as funny as it is, as lighthearted as it is, we also are introducing to students what opera is all about and the emotions that are possible, even if the context has Mozart rolling over in his grave.
Even if they're wearing a pig head.
Yes.
Exactly. What makes opera so special, and I think that's really important to remember when presenting for younger audiences, is that they are just little adults. And they want a great story. They want strong emotions. They want to be entertained. They want to think. They want to do all these things that we as adults want to do as well. And I think that's the really fun thing about bringing these shows to students.
That's wonderful. I'm going to give that a little cheer. Well spoken.
Indeed.
Well done. Kevin, maybe you can talk about like the student night at the opera. I know that people come to see that. They're slightly older, right?
Yeah, those are mainly high school students, high school and college. We always try to bring in some Bowling Green, University of Toledo students as well. And they are offered a substantially reduced ticket price, and they get to come and they dress up. They treat it like it's a grand night out to come to the opera. And they also provide us with an audience for the final dress rehearsal, so that we get, especially for things like Cenerentola, that we've been telling these jokes for the last 3 weeks, and now we get an audience and we get response, and the response of the high school students is unbelievable. They are, I hate to say it, but sometimes some of our best audiences, because their reactions are so fresh and so immediate.
Absolutely.
There's no worry about, this is opera, we have to behave. No, they actually they just speak and shout and clap from their emotion.
They don't necessarily have all the roadblocks in place.
None at all, which I wish that would carry over into our adult audiences sometimes.
But, my experience has been the same. I remember singing Don José with New York City Opera, and we did some high school performances in New York.
Sure.
And they were totally into the opera. We did, it was Carmen, so people die at the end. And there were a huge cheer went out, and you heard all kinds of, reactions that you would hope that people would experience, of all ages, right? That they would have that same experience in the opera house. Before we go any further, I have 3 different quizzes here. And you can each decide which one of you is going to do what quiz. I'll play a little music for you to get us in the mood. Okay, here's the first quiz. So you can guess what that is about. Here is the second quiz. Okay.
That's Jim's quiz.
That's
short
mine.
And sweet. And here is the last quiz. Okay, so that would be Kevin, probably.
Either that or the Elgar. I'll take 1 or 3.
Okay, well, they're entitled Theater Potpourri, Give My Regards to Broadway, and Back to School. So those are the names of the quizzes. Each quiz has only 5 questions. Jim, you're doing the Broadway one, right?
I will do the Broadway. Okay,
so it's a toss-up. I'm going to let Joshua decide if he wants theater or back to school.
I'll take the theater one. And
okay.
I'm regretting having introduced myself as resident scholar of Virginia.
Pressure.
Let's start with the resident scholar, shall we? Yes.
Oh, no.
I'm going to bring up a little extra music here. Okay. That's nice quiz music, right? Okay, so let me ask you the first question. Now, this is a multiple choice quiz, so I'm going to give you 3 to choose from, Joshua. We're going to start with you, and you tell me which was the correct answer, right? Who is known as the father of American theater? Was it Eugene O'Neill, David Belasco, or William Dunlap? What do you say?
I'm going to go with... I narrowed down to 2 in my head, and I'm going to say O'Neill.
Really?
It was William Dunlap, actually, the first American professional playwright.
Yeah, same here, Josh.
I have learned something. Thank you.
Okay, here's the next question for you, and I know that you'll know this one. Who founded the oldest professional mime theater in the world? Was it Paul Curtis, Marcel Marceau, or Samuel Avital?
You
A,
can
B, or
mime
C?
your answer, Joshua.
Yes.
Yes, I'm doing it right here. Can you tell?
Yes. Oh, I feel it. Yeah.
So what do you
I'm going to
say?
go with Marceau because that's the one that I know was a mime.
0 for 2. That would be Paul Curtis, who founded the American Mime Theater in the 1950s. Okay.
Learning so much today about education.
I know, me too. This
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Okay, here's the next quiz question. Which influential acting teacher and director was a major figure in American acting training and is known for the method acting technique? Is it Sanford Meisner, Lee Strasberg, or Stella Adler? A, B, or C?
B. Strasberg.
Yeah, that's right.
Got one.
Yeah. Well, actually, all three would have been correct, but you couldn't lose. Couldn't lose. Okay, 2 questions to go. You can still win this quiz, all right? The first African-American theater company in the United States was founded by whom? Was it Langston Hughes? Was it William Henry Brown? Or was it Ira Aldridge? Boy, that's a tough one. What do you say?
First one.
The first one?
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, that's wrong. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Actually.
But that wasn't his answer.
That wasn't his answer. He was just
Oh.
repeating the question.
Oh, okay. Well, what's your answer? Now that
Well,
now that you know it's not the
narrow
first.
it down to 2.
Yeah. You have a 50-50 chance.
You're welcome, Josh.
Yeah, I'll go with B.
Okay, B. That's it.
Yay!
William Henry Brown, American playwright and theatrical producer, considered to be the first known black playwright in America. He founded the African Theater Company in 1821, which was the first known black theater company in North America.
Wow.
So it's an educational podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one last chance here to save your reputation, Joshua. Last question of the quiz is the word theater is derived from the Greek word theomai. What does it mean? Does it mean to perform, to enjoy, or to behold? A, B, or C?
Oh.
What do you say?
I mean, hopefully all 3. But I will say, with my limited Greek, I'm going to guess C.
Yay!
Yes, to behold. So how many did you get? You got 2 or 3? You got 3 out of 5? We'll give you 3 out of 5. All right, Joshua is the winner of that quiz. Let's take a little quiz break, right, before we go into more quizzes. Let's talk about the other thing that Toledo Opera offers as far as educational programs go, and this is an opera as a story, which is for really young kids.
It's for pre-kindergarten, yes.
Yeah, what can you tell us about that performance, or that program?
It is a 2-week program with a resident scholar who comes in and talks about the feelings and the rhythms. They do some puppet work also that culminates with a shortened program where they're really encouraged to participate. Kevin was talking about the student night opera, student night audiences, feeling. The pre-K do the same thing, and it's really wonderful to see them come out of their shell over this 2-week period of people going into their classes and sharing Carmen or Hansel and Gretel or the Pirates of Penzance. The music of it, it's less about the storyline and more about the feeling that the kids get.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned that you have a scholar that comes in and does that. That's not Joshua, right?
That is not Joshua.
Okay.
It's Christina Farrell.
So you have a couple of scholars. Do you guys ever disagree? You ever have a fight, a ringside event?
We don't let them into the same room, so we're okay.
Joshua, you're strangely quiet right now.
I always love wonderful, vibrant conversations with colleagues. So
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's get back to the quiz. You're up, Jim.
All right.
All right, here we go.
This is going to be obscure, isn't it?
Hey,
Well-
you are the fount of all knowledge of Broadway. So
Yeah, you got a little clue as to the questions on the quiz from the first iteration of it. This quiz is entitled Give My Regards to Broadway. What is the oldest theater on Broadway? Is it the Metropolitan Opera, the New Victory Theater, or the Belasco Theater? What do you say, Jim? And this theater actually was founded under a different name. Okay.
I'm going to go with the New Victory.
The New Victory Theater is correct. Yeah. Founded in 1900 as the Republic Theater. Now, interestingly enough, the old Metropolitan Opera House was at Broadway and West 39th Street. It opened in 1883, so it was sort of like the officially on Broadway.
Sure.
It's sort of the unofficial.
Took over from the Academy of Music.
Yes.
If you're watching the Gilded Age.
Okay. All right. Who is known as the man who created Broadway? Was it James Norman? No, I'm just kidding. Was it Irving Berlin, Oscar Hammerstein I, or George M. Cohen?
I'm going to go with
Maybe.
Cohen.
That's right. Yeah. The man who created Broadway. Okay, what musical was the first one to win the Pulitzer Prize for Drama? Was it Of Thee I Sing? Was it South Pacific? Or was it Fiorello?
Oof.
A, B, or C?
Really, Fiorello? Oh. I'm going to go with South Pacific in 1949.
Oh. It was actually Of Thee I Sing, which was
Really?
1932.
Gershwin.
Yeah, the Gershwin brothers. Wonderful performance there. Sheldon Harnick was the librettist of Fiorello,
Yes.
and a little shout out to him. You know that he wrote an opera, actually. He wrote the words for an opera, and this is sort of like a possible makeup question for you, Jim.
Okay.
Okay, what opera did Sheldon Harnick write the libretto for? The music was by Henry Morricone. Was it called Fox Tales, Coyote Tales, or Buffalo Tales? Tales.
I'm going to go with Fox.
Fox Tales is wrong, but we won't count that. It was Coyote Tales, actually.
really?
It was the opera. Okay, put these musicals in order from the most performances to the least performances. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 different sets in order of these musicals. I've confused myself already. All right.
So the most performances to the least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, The Lion King? That's A. Or was it Chicago, Les Miserables, or Cats? That's B. And was it A Chorus Line, Rent, and Grease? That's C.
Give me the first one more time, please.
Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, The Lion King.
The answer is B.
Well, I have the answer as being C, so... You want to try again, Jim? Let's say the answer is C.
The answer is C, Brad.
Very good. A Chorus Line is number 7 at 6,137 performances. Rent was number 11 at 5,123 performances, and Grease was number 16 at 3,338 performances. So we don't expect you to know all those numbers. No. It's a little esoteric here.
Just a little.
Well, one more question here. What is the longest running show to have premiered on Broadway? Was it the Phantom of the Opera, was it Chicago, or was it The Lion King? And this show is still on Broadway, by the way.
Chicago.
Chicago is correct.
And it's
Very
actually
good.
the revival of Chicago.
Yeah, it's been
Playing for 25 years, something like that.
1990s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to give you that one as well. So, how many did you get, Jim?
I think I got 3 right.
All right, we'll say it's 3. Yeah, totally. All right, so you and Joshua are tied right now. Kevin, it's
Oh,
going to
boy.
be your chance.
Pressure.
And we'll go ahead and go straight to that quiz, right? Okay. Kevin, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. All right. Which American university is often considered the birthplace of modern performing arts education? Was it the Juilliard School? Was it Boston University? Or I'm going to turn that off. Okay. Was it Juilliard, Boston University, or Yale University? What is considered the birthplace of modern performing arts education?
Not Bowling Green State University. I would say Boston. Oh,
It was actually Yale.
really?
Yeah, the
Are
Yale
they the
School
Whiff
of
and
Arts.
Poofs?
They are the
Is it
Whiff
the
and
Whiff and
Poofs.
Poofs?
Yeah. Founded in 1869, the first professional fine arts school in the United States. Okay, second one. Who founded the first university music department in America? He was also America's first music professor. Was it John Knowles Payne? Was it George Chadwick? Or was it Horatio Parker? A, B, or C? What do you say, Kevin?
Oh, they're so close to each other.
Yeah. So this would have been at Harvard.
Yep. Payne.
John Knowles Payne is correct. Good job. Don't get too excited.
I've got one.
You still got 3 questions to go. Okay, Boston was also the site of the first music program in public schools during the late 1830s. Who was behind the effort? Was it William Billings? Was it Lowell Mason? Or was it Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi? That's a real name. I didn't make that up.
I wish it was C.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Lowell Mason.
That's correct. Wow.
Billings was a little earlier, from what I remember.
A little bit earlier. Yeah. Oh, Joshua, hi.
Hi, Josh.
Oh, yes.
I feel the good vibes, okay? Thank you.
I'm sending them your way.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's the next question. Researchers find that sustained learning in music and theater correlates strongly with higher achievement in what? Is it in math, in reading, or both math and reading? A, B, or C? So studying music can help you out in math or reading or both.
I know that it's math. I would love it to be both, so I'm just going to say both.
Yes. Very good. Boy, you're cleaning up here. You got all but the first question correct. Okay, last chance here. Which of these are potential benefits to an arts education? That was poorly worded, I think. Which of these are have shown to be the benefits of an arts education? Okay, was it handle constructive criticism? Was it bolster academic achievement? Or was it to develop social, emotional, and interpersonal skills? A, B, or C? Or you can say D, all of the above.
I'm going to say D, all of the above.
Very good.
Thank you. Yay! Go music.
Well, I have some other things here, too. Also engage with school and reduce stress, improves focus, enriches their experience. Can you think of any other benefits that go with music education? First, I want to mention, by the way, that you got almost all of them correct. So the winner of all 3 quizzes would be Kevin Bilsma.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you.
Congrats to you. So what do you think about, what do you think, and I address this question to you, Joshua, what is the primary benefit of an arts education? If you go to somebody on the street and you have to make the case for educating people about the arts when they're still in school, what would you say?
Yeah, well, my answer is kind of hard to quantify, which is probably why it's not, kind of in studies. And I think I'm going to punt a little bit in that I think there are incredible benefits for participating in music making and then incredible benefits for experiencing the art of others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think when you are in a choir, you're in a elementary school show or program or something like that, I think one of the biggest things that does is develop empathy with everyone else.
Amen. Yeah.
In that show, helping you understand whatever character or whatever theme or, what have you that you're expressing, whatever emotion, even if you've never experienced it before. And I think one of the things that doesn't necessarily come through, quantitative data, but comes through qualitative from the audience perspective of kids experiencing art is the development of your imagination. I think that's one of the most kind of underreported, if you will, skills and things that is developed in music education, theater education, arts education in general, that is vital to being a human and living a really interesting life. And I think that's one of the great things about what Toledo is doing every single season. Yeah.
Well, we kind of live a little bit in a bubble as far as, because we are talking about opera specifically. So that is kind of, a subset of education. But I think that everything that you said, Joshua, certainly applies to the world of opera. And what Toledo Opera has done in the community is a wonderful way to sort of get kids involved in the emotional aspect of opera, of the art form as it is. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that, Jim?
Well, I think that going out to the schools that I do and observe our performances with the children, a lot of times this is the first time that kids have heard live singing. It's not recorded.
Right.
It's not a microphone. Even though they might be in a gymnatorium, they're singing without amplification. And I think that, especially the little ones, usually elementary schools will seat them from kindergarten and up, from front to back. And it's always fun to watch the little ones. Sometimes when the soprano hit a high note, they'll cover their ears because they're not used to that immediacy and that live sound that's coming out of a human being.
Yeah, I know.
And not a speaker.
I remember one time, I think it was Pavarotti was singing on The Late Show with David Letterman, and David Letterman said, it's just amazing to sit here and watch that sound come out of your head. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the resident artists, because we touched on them. They do opera on wheels, but what other engagement activities do they have during the year?
A number of them sing small roles, compromario roles with our main stage productions. The Stepsisters in Cenerentola, for example, or Tybalt and Gregorio in Romeo and Juliet, and some other roles in Ragtime. They also participate in fundraising functions for the opera. They sing for the guild luncheons. They sing for the board. What was the thing this weekend that they did?
Oh, we were part of Flaunt, the fashion show for the Equality of Toledo.
Right,
and they performed during that as well, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I know they've done some outdoor performances,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Opera outdoors at the Metro Parks and at the Farmers Market. And also, just to follow up what Jim was talking about, the singing, just the visceral experience of live singing. Also, we have a live pianist as one of the resident artists who goes out and plays for all of the shows. And so just to have students experience somebody, it's not a boombox, it's actually a person playing an instrument.
Yeah, and they're not taking it apart and putting it back together.
No, we're not.
For every show. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And, it runs both ways, because it's not only beneficial, obviously, for the children, it's also beneficial for these young artists.
Absolutely. I remember when I was a young artist at, what is now Detroit Opera, I probably played 400 shows in 1 year. We would go up on tours to the Upper Peninsula and everything, and I was just fresh out of grad school, and the fact just to play every single day, do 2 or 3 shows every day in front of an audience, it was just, it changed the scope of my life.
Absolutely.
And the same thing for these young artists. They get to practice their craft. They're out of school, they're figuring out what it takes to actually sing all these performances and to engage an audience every single day.
Okay, so let's finish up here with a little flash round. I want you each to go around and tell me anything that we've left on the table, anything that you want to mention about opera and about Toledo Opera in particular and their efforts. And Joshua, I know you're off in Virginia or wherever, but obviously you've done some work with Toledo Opera in the past, and your work is still being performed here. I wonder if we'll start with you, and is there anything that we may not think of or that we may have missed when it comes to education?
No, I think all your questions have been wonderful, but I do want to say that, I work with a number of different opera companies, as you mentioned, and the pieces that I've adapted and written have been, kind of all over the country. And every year without fail, I am so impressed with what Toledo is doing. This is, for my money, kind of one of the best educational programs in the commitment to bring quality performances to schools, to children, to communities. And I think that's something that Toledo can be really, really proud of.
Absolutely. Kevin, what do you think? Is there anything that we've left on the table as far as education goes?
Oh, this has been fantastic. I just remember when I was first hired by Toledo Opera, I also was the pianist for the resident artist program, and I did the opera on wheels throughout the schools. And I was in Kroger one afternoon, and this mother came up to me and she said, "We saw you at our school yesterday."
Uh-huh.
And we're so excited that our kids get to experience live music, but also it makes them realize that opera is something that they shouldn't be afraid of.
Right.
You know that, and so we may be exposing a young person to music for the first time. It may be something that they'll want to further their education and become a performer, or we're creating an audience for the future. And
Wow.
I just think both of those things are so beautiful and so important.
Yeah. Jim, last word to you.
Well, mine's a little more personal. This year was really nice that we're sharing Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, but our first two performances were actually at my niece's school in Lambertville that she's the principal of, where my great niece is in third grade. So to have both of them there and be able to share what I do with them was just a blessing.
That's wonderful. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank all three of you for coming and talking about educational efforts from Toledo Opera, the educational programs. People can find a lot more information at the website at toledoopera.org. You've been listening to Opera Out of the Box, a co-production of WGTE Public Media and Toledo Opera, which is a sponsor of programs on WGTE. And as I mentioned, you can learn more at their website, toledoopera.org. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me here on Opera Out of the Box.
Thanks,
you,
Brad.
Brad.
Thank
Okay.
you.